over the last couple of days, I've been going through and looking up what new gun legislation Congress has been introducing. Yesterday, I submitted a video about the Protecting Our Kids Act and everything that was included in that. Now, I found another one that was introduced on May 19th following the Buffalo shooting by Cory Booker. And this one's even worse. So what this is, and I'm going to go through and read it, and then I'm going to give you some examples. It's an establishment of a federal license to purchase or receive firearms. The Attorney General shall establish a federal system for using a federal firearm license to eligible individuals for firearm transferred to such individual. The system established shall require that an individual shall be eligible to receive such a license if the individual has completed training in firearm safety, including a written test to demonstrate knowledge of applicable firearms, and hands-on testing, including firing tests to demonstrate safe use and sufficient accuracy of a weapon, and, as part of the process for applying for such license, has submitted to a background investigation and criminal history check of the individual, has submitted proof of identity, has submitted the fingerprints of the individual, and has submitted identifying information on the firearm that the person intends to obtain, including make, model, and serial number, and the identity of the firearm seller or transferor. Each license issued under the section shall be valid for the purchase of a single firearm, which shall be purchased no later than 30 days after the issue on which the license is issued. A license issued under the system shall expire on the date that is 5 years after the date on which a firearm license was issued. Now, this is not a good idea. I know this has been something that has been brought up lately. Let's just require people to get a license to buy a firearm. Require them to obtain insurance on the firearm like you would a car. Let me say something. Driving a car in the United States is a privilege. It is not a right. Owning a firearm, bearing a firearm is a right. Not only is it a right in the Constitution, it is in the Bill of Rights. It is one of the first 10 amendments. It is number 2. In terms of importance, I like to say that when it comes to the Bill of Rights, those first 10 amendments, they're listed in matters of importance. That's why you had the First Amendment is freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to protest, and your second one is the right to bear arms. It is a right. To force someone to take a firearm safety course to obtain a CCW or a concealed weapons permit is one thing. That is not limiting the ability of someone to own a handgun or own a rifle. That is just giving them the ability to conceal carry said handgun. That is it. There's no limitation of rights there. But to force someone to do the exact same thing, on top of which, by the way, you have to go get fingerprinted. I don't remember if I got fingerprinted for the concealed weapons permit. I may have. I don't remember. But to get fingerprinted to exercise a right granted to you in the U.S. Constitution is bullshit. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say you want to practice a religion here in the U.S. Let's say you wanted to be a Christian. How would you feel if part of exercising your religious freedom and your First Amendment right meant that the government required you to take an exam that shows your competence and knowledge and understanding of Christianity and the Bible? You also had to do a field test or a physical test showing that you know how to pray properly. After passing that exam by their standards, you must then go down to the county clerk's office and purchase a license. And that license will be priced by the federal government, who it's in their best interest to have a high price and a high standard because they're using this as a substantial source of revenue. Once you buy that, you also have to go and you have to pass a federal background check, making sure that you haven't been practicing any other religions or something along those lines. Once you pass your background check, once you pass your exams, your competence exam, and purchase your license, you also have to go and get fingerprinted. And when you get fingerprinted, you have to submit that to the federal government along with your name and the name of any church and the address of the church that you're going to be worshiping at. Once all that's done, that license is good for 5 years. And after 5 years, you have to go and do the same process over again. By the way, within that 5 years, if you say you're out of town for vacation and you want to go to another church, you have to get another license, go through another exam, go submit your fingerprints again just to attend that church and that service. That wouldn't be very cool, would it? Let me give you another example. It's been a common theme lately with our government saying that free speech and potential misinformation is harmful to society. It's a danger. We saw this with COVID. We see it now. So what if you wanted to practice your freedom of speech or freedom of expression, you had to do the same process. Pass a federal background check. That way they could make sure that you don't have any past history of any unacceptable speech or hurting anyone's feelings. After you pass your background check, you have to go and take a course showing that you are not an asshole and that you are competent enough to communicate with others without being offensive. Once you pass your course, you then have to go pay a fee for a license, again, priced by the federal government, who in their interest is using this as a source of revenue. And once you buy your license, you have to go and submit fingerprints along with your name, the username you're going to be using on whatever platform you tend to use, and the address that you expect to be typing away on your computer at. And that license is good for 5 years, so you can talk shit for 5 years on social media, as long as you don't overstep. And after 5 years, you have to go renew it. Oh, by the way, say that was for Twitter. You got that license for Twitter. Well, if you want to use Facebook, you have to go do the same process and get it for Facebook or Instagram or Rumble or YouTube. Each one of those requires its own separate license and own separate background check and own separate fee. You see, some people will look at me and say, Michael, you are way overthinking this. Like, the Second Amendment and a firearm is completely different than your freedom of speech. And it's dangerous. A firearm is not fucking dangerous. The person is dangerous. The person that is handling the firearm is just as dangerous as the person that is practicing religion or the person that is practicing its freedom of speech. There's no difference. There's also no difference in the Second Amendment and my ability to practice it, and the First Amendment and my ability to practice it. And it's not up to the government or any motherfucker that I vote in to dictate whether or not I'm allowed to practice my rights as an American citizen. The Constitution is not law. The Constitution lays out freedoms, and it restricts the government from overstepping on us. The only amendment that has ever been repealed in the Constitution is the prohibition of alcohol. Why? Because that took a freedom away. The Constitution is there to grant freedoms, not take them away. And our problem we have today is that we have a bunch of people in Washington that have an agenda and want to please their party so fucking much that they will go as far as they have to get votes. And these same rules don't seem to apply to them. We cannot allow anyone to overstep on our rights. I don't care if it's for owning a firearm, if it's for saying whatever you want, whatever it is, you cannot allow anyone to overstep on your rights. The moment we allow them to keep chipping away at a certain amendment, or the moment we allow, or the moment we accept a president making a statement as dangerous as the Second Amendment is not absolute. Correction. The Second Amendment is 100% absolute. In fact, it's the only one that says it shall not be infringed. I don't care if you want to sit here and try and determine what a militia is. Hell, a militia is actually defined by the government. And as far as I'm concerned, by their definition, we're all in it. But that back half says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And neither should any other of those amendments. Once they start withering that away, if they truly believe that the Second Amendment is not absolute, then that means that the First Amendment is not absolute, and that means that the Third Amendment is not absolute, and that means that the Fourth Amendment is not absolute. That means the Fifth Amendment is not absolute. What are you going to do when the police don't need probable cause or a warrant, and they can come into your house any time they want? By the way, if for whatever reason you get that license taken away, let's say you are pending a trial, they have the right to come and confiscate your firearms per that bill. You may think, well, Michael, if you commit a crime, you shouldn't really have. No. See, I have another problem with this. We are innocent until proven guilty. We are not guilty until proven innocent, as much as it may seem. We are innocent until proven guilty in this country. But for whatever reason, we have politicians that feel like they can put in here that to obtain a license, you can't be pending any trial. Well, if you haven't been convicted of anything, then you're innocent. And you're innocent until they prove otherwise. And this is a serious flaw in the United States now. And we need to restructure this. This needs to be changed. We need to get this out of our head. Do bad people do bad things? Absolutely. But why the fuck would you limit a law-abiding citizen on the basis of what bad people are doing? Again, we don't own a firearm to hunt. We don't even really own it for our own self-defense, like personal self-defense. We own it for the exact reason that they're trying to overstep and take our rights away. That's actually what we own it for. We own it to protect ourselves from the government doing the very thing that they are doing. There's nothing more tyrannical than limiting your citizens' rights and your population's rights to protecting themselves against you. There's nothing more tyrannical than that. So we need to open our eyes here. I don't care if you're for guns or not. You should be for freedom. And unfortunately, we have a lot of Americans that aren't. They don't want to abide by the Constitution. They don't understand how great the Constitution actually is. If you don't like what someone says, you should still respect their right to say it. If you don't like firearms, you should still respect our rights to own them, because that is what keeps order in this country. That is the last form of checks and balances that we have. You know what the government hasn't done, by the way? You know what kind of bill I haven't seen? I haven't seen anything that helps take care of the mental illness problem that we have in this country. Why? Well, because they still need all this stuff to happen. They know, well, we're going to limit firearms, but the shootings are going to continue because we have a bunch of sick motherfuckers in this country. We don't want to address the family issue. We don't want to incentivize marriage. We don't want to incentivize people making good decisions or help people with mental health problems. No, we just want to take your guns away. Because if we actually did something to address the mental health problems, maybe we fix a lot of it, and then we don't have a lot of these problems, and then we don't have anything to use as a political ploy to get votes. I don't know. But they haven't introduced one fucking bill for that. Not one, but they have about 5 or 6 new gun legislation policies. By the way, none of the background checks, and I'm not for it, but none of them address checking for mental health. Not one. Which means they aren't targeting the people that are actually doing this stuff. They're targeting us, the regular citizens that are law-abiding citizens that would never do anything like that, that truly own the firearm for the purpose it was meant to be owned. They're targeting us. They're not targeting the bad people. And it's a serious problem, and we need to address that.